Hi, my name's Steve Ringer and welcome to Feeder Fishing. Right, today I've brought you to somewhere very different. It's somewhere I've never been before. We're at Packington Somers. We're on Broadwater Lake. Now, most of you, even if you've been to Packington, might not have heard of Broadwater. It's basically a carp syndicate lake, but we've got special permission today to fish it. The target species is going to be roach. There are some bream in here. I think there's some crucians. There's an odd big hybrid, so you never know. It might be a bit mixed. But today's session is going to be all about roach. There's some good roach, possibility of a 2-pound fish, unlikely, but they are in here. But a lot of fish between sort of 4 and 8 ounces. So I'm hoping it's going to be all about speed. It's gone cold, so that could put a little dampener on it, but there is a lot of fish in here. They don't get fished for a lot, so it's sort of a wild venue. As in, I don't expect the fish to be line shy. I'm expecting it to be a little bit feast or famine. I don't know how long it's going to take to get the fish going. It could be instant. I mean, I know some guys pleasure fished it a week or so ago and they did really well, but the last 2 days have gone really, really cold. So as you can see, my breath's steaming up. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but that's the beauty of it. It's a venue I've never been to before, so I can talk to you about exactly how I approach it. So before we start fishing, let's talk about bait. Okay, so as far as bait goes, bear in mind roach are the target species. I'm keeping it nice and simple. I don't know anything about the venue, and on that basis, I've got worms with me, got a kilo there, but I'm not going to put them in at the start, hence they're still in the bag. My theory being, fishing here won't really have seen worms. It doesn't get sort of match fished or coarse fished a lot. It's a carp water, so I'm going to keep it to particles at the start. Got the worms there, should I actually need them, so I can literally riddle a few off, chop them up just to see, but I'm not expecting to need them. Keeping with the particle theme, got casters, plenty of them. I don't expect to use that many. I'd have said I've got 3.5 pints there. 2 pints probably would have been plenty. That's going to be my mainstay on my feed. I'm expecting the roach in here to like casters, maybe like maggots, but particles are going to be key. So we've got casters, a few maggots. These are just coming around. They're not supposed to be dead. They're just getting some oxygen. They've been bagged down overnight in the fridge. And they're just literally coming back to life. I always prefer a live maggot for roach. The reason being, I feel the fish hold on to them a little bit better. I've always found when roach fishing, you tend to miss a lot of bites on a dead maggot. So lives are best, and trust me, they will come round in a minute. Another bait I got with me that you might not associate with roach is sweet corn. 2 reasons for that. I've caught a lot of big roach on corn over the years, even particularly places like Ireland and big reservoirs. And the second reason is I'd imagine the carp boys probably feed a bit of corn in here. So it's a bait that the roach are used to sort of picking up. So I'm thinking it's going to feed an odd grain. And say I do start to catch, maybe the stamp's a little bit small, I can just slide a grain of corn on and just see what happens. It might not produce anything, but equally, I don't believe it's going to do any harm feeding it. And it might just help me catch a bonus fish. So that's the reason behind the corn. Last but not least, ground bait. I've sort of deliberated a lot about ground bait, purely on the basis that I don't know the venue. I don't know if it's a fish meal venue, I don't know what goes in here, whether it's a boilie venue for the carp boys. So I've gone with a 50-50 mix of Ringer's European feeder, which is an out-and-out sweet mix, and then a F1 black, which is a sweet fish meal. So by mixing the two together, I've got a mix that's not what I'd call dark in colour, but equally not light. It's totally what I'd call an inoffensive colour. But it's got a little bit of fish meal in it. I'd imagine there must be some pellets going here. But if I went with an out-and-out fish meal mix, which I will sometimes use for roach, I could risk catching nothing, particularly as it's gone cold. But by using a sweet fish meal, if the roach do like fish meal, I've still got a bit of attraction for them. But sweet, I can't really go wrong with the sweet. So sweet fish meal, slightly off colour, so it's not bright, but it's not what I'd call a black mix. The colour of the water, you'll probably notice while we're actually fishing, it's got a tinge. It's not crystal clear like some gravel pits. It's got a nice tinge of colour. So it looks fishy. So that's the reason. If it was a little bit clearer, I might have gone with like 2 parts F1 black to 1 part European feeder, but it's a nice colour. So it's a nice colour, the actual water, so I've gone with this particular mix. and I've not tried to darken it off too much. So that's the theory as far as bait goes. Let's talk you through my setup. Right, so as I said, I don't know anything about this venue. So the first thing I've had to do is sort of prepare for every eventuality. So I've bought 12-foot rods and 11-foot rods. On getting here, I'm in a little bit of a bay. It's quite like it's a big lake, but it's quite a little bit higgledy-piggledy all over the place. I personally didn't see any point straight away trying to chuck really long, like 50, 60 metres, because all I'm doing is going closer to the other bank. So instead, I've had a plumb around, and it's a typical gravel pit. It's not that deep anyway, I'd say maybe 8 foot, like in front of me. It might be deeper in other areas, obviously I'm not privy to that information. But I've had a chuck around, just using a little 1 ounce, as you can see that, bit of the paint's been took off by gravel, 1 ounce guru square bottom, and sort of like 30 to 40 metres, it's barely a 1 count. So I've come back, and at 24 metres, if I can just demo it, I'm literally getting 1,000, 2,000, and it's on the deck. So I reckon that's 8 foot. So I'd say at sort of 24 metres, I'm in 8 foot, and probably 35 metres, I'm maybe only in 6. You've got to allow for the fact the further you go, you lose a bit of count just trying to catch up with it as you bomb it the clip. So, for example, a 2 count at 25 metres and a 2 count at 40 metres won't be the same depth. If you had a 2 count at 40, it would be slightly deeper. But I'm barely struggling to get a 1 at 40. So my attitude is it's probably only 6 foot deep. And that makes sense. It's an old gravel pit. I was told that there is a bit of depth variation. And with that in mind, and the fact it's cold, I'd rather fish in the deeper water. So we've gone 24 metres. You know what I mean? At 20 metres, it's a similar depth. I just think 24 is just before it starts to come back up. I've dragged the bomb along the bottom. It feels nice and clean. It's just a nice, easy distance to fish. I might be totally wrong. I might be an hour in thinking, well, I've got to go further. I'll be surprised if I have to come closer, because I can't see any reason why the fish would be closer in than 24 metres. But if the fishing's harder, it sort of follows that I might have to go further, but I won't know that until I start fishing. Setup wise, pretty standard. If I just run through it, 11-foot tournament, quiver, ounce tips. I just think an ounce tip's lovely for roach fishing. It allows me to fish nice and slack and just see every sort of indication. TDR 4012, 010 tournament Evo braid, fishing braid direct. Now, as I've said, I've got special dispensation here today to fish how I want to fish for the roach. Normally braid's not allowed on here, so if you did ever get permission to come on here again, you might not be able to use braid. That's obviously up to John Burchill, the fishery manager's discretion, but he has allowed me to use braid today on the proviso that I point out that it's not normally allowed. So nice simple running rig, a little 1.5 to 2 inch running paternoster. For me, as far as roach fishing goes, a running rig is king. Bite detection's totally different. You miss less bites, you see the bites better, and I think the roach just hang themselves better. Helicopter, yeah, brilliant big fish rig, but for roach, it's all about the running rig. So braid direct, then I've got, I don't know if you can see that, if I can just hold it. I changed it slightly, I'm always tweaking my rigs. Joker Ass showed me some little, I think they're called grip stops. So all I've got is a little tiny swivel covered by a grip stop. Then if you watched, if the hook wasn't stuck in my trouser, if you watched last month's, you'll notice I've been playing around with power gum. So I've got a, I don't know, 5-inch power gum boom, 6-pound power gum, bit of stretch. I'm really liking it. I mean, I'm still playing around, still learning with it, but I haven't found any negatives to using it. If you do hook a big fish as well, it just gives you a little bit of stretch, particularly when fishing braid direct, and maybe take the clip off. So little gripper stop, little bead, little mini swivel, 5-inch length of power gum, and I'm going to start on 80 centimetres of 016, which might seem heavy considering I think the bulk of our fish are going to be 2 to 6 ounce, but my attitude is these fish, they don't get fished for. They shouldn't be hook or line shot. It's not like they're getting hammered every week. They've seen it all before. Water's got a tinge, so I'm going to start on 016 to a 14 series 18 hook. Again, special dispensation to use the barbed hook. If it was a standard commercial and the rules basically were like no barbed, then obviously I'd use barbless. But today, as I said, I'm allowed to use what I want to use to catch roach as a special one-off. So size 14, Tubertini series 18. Again, to some that might seem a big hook, But to me, taking into account the roach are wild, there's supposed to be a lot of them. If anything, I'd expect, if it went really well within an hour, I might be on a 12. So that's the theory. One last thing, feeder choice. Bear in mind again, I don't know how the lake's going to respond. What I do know is when I'm roach fishing, I don't like to put like a load of bait in at the start. I'd rather fish fast and build it up that way. So I'm thinking to start with, maybe 90-second cast for the first sort of 20 minutes, get an idea of what's in front of me, and then reevaluate. I just never feel that roach on the feeder respond to like 6 big bait ups and then sit and wait approach. My idea is the bites are going to come quick if they come. So I'm going to start on a little 3-hole 20-gram slimline. And in an ideal world, I'll be switching to a little window. I've got a little 20-gram. That's not 20-gram, but I can change it over the 20-gram. A couple of little windows once the fish arrive. That's my idea, is to cloud it up with a cage to start with and then catch them with a window. Small feeders. It's only 7-8 foot deep, as I said. I don't want to be chucking like 30-40 gram in and crashing it in. To me, that's going to spook them. The water's absolutely freezing. When I put my platform in, it proper stung the hands. So 20-gram feeder, I'll be using 20-gram windows. Try and keep the disturbance nice and minimal. So that's kit. I mean, the beauty of braid direct is it just magnifies every bite. You'll see that once we start fishing. As far as I'm concerned, if you roach fishing and braid's allowed, then braid direct is king. Right, a few last little things to do, and then we'll start the fishing. Right, as far as kicking the swim off goes, like I said, I'm going to fish fast. Hook bait, single maggot. Don't see any point at the minute putting like 2 or 3 maggots in. First job is to get a bite. Now, as far as hooking a maggot for roach goes, that one's pretty much dead. As I said, some of them haven't come back to life yet. That one's alive. I really want a live maggot. I'm going to miss less bites. And I like to hook it what I call thick. If I can just stop that wobbling about. I just find you miss a lot less bites when you hook it thick. You can thread it as well. If I was on a bigger hook, say a 10, I'd look to thread it. Feed-wise, I'm going to put a couple of grains of corn, a few casters in, and I'm going to look to fish quite far. I'm not plugging the feeder hard. It's quite shallow. I want to cloud the swim up. So I've literally got no idea how long this is going to take. It might take 20 seconds. It might take an hour. I'm confident I'm going to catch. But from what I've been told, it's not a lake anyone's really feeder fished before. So I don't know how they're going to react to the noise going in. I know they did catch here a week ago, but like I said, it's gone a lot colder since then. But there has been a few, although conditions aren't perfect, there has been a few roach just pimping. Not going to give this chuck long because it's all about kicking the swim off. Oh, there's a fish on. I'd like to say I saw that bite, but I didn't. So after waxing lyrical about braid direct, quite a small roach, but probably only 1.5 ounces, probably 2 ounce, but a nice start. Hopefully there'll be some bigger samples as the session progresses, but when you consider the size of the lake, and I've just chucked out, that's not a bad start. Would have been better if I'd have seen the bite. One thing I didn't mention when we were talking tackle is the fact I've started on an 80 centimetre hook length. Purely on the basis, I always think roach like to feed on the drop, but equally, if that doesn't prove to be the case, and I'm getting a few like that last one, which was on the end, I will shorten it down. I'd expect them to be quite aggressive in how they feed. Just trying to keep, that was a better bite. Just trying to keep it nice and slack. If you can see the tip, nice and slack, and let them pull themselves on. I think this one's a little bit bigger. That's probably 4 ounce, that one. But when you consider I've literally just cast this out in the middle of nowhere, and we've had a roach first chuck and second chuck, that's pretty much phenomenal fishing. I'm going to keep feeding. I'm going to feed a little bit more, to be fair. Still plugging it nice and soft, 20 gram. all stop the rod in front of me, and then by the time I pull it back, I'm not what I call tight, but I'm tight enough to see a bite. Just trying to leave it pretty slack and let them pull themselves on. That last one was a brilliant example of it. I'm not looking to strike at every single tapper movement. I'm waiting for like what I call a solid movement or something that holds. Mend that little bow because the braid's not been chucked, it's still floating a little bit. No sign yet this chuck. Just put a tiny bend in that tip. Just looking for something that pulls and holds. Could be that it's shallow, that I might have to fish a slightly shorter hook length. No bite that chuck and no fish on. Like I say, I don't really know how solid the lake is. Truth, fishing your first two chucks is pretty remarkable, to say the least. But I don't know whether that's sustainable. I'm hoping we're going to get some sort of 8, 10, even 12 ounce fish later on. But what I will say about roach is you won't bore any on. So even if I wasn't catching, it's important to keep casting. Because I do think roach respond to sort of cloud, they respond to a bait falling through the water. They don't respond to a bait that's just been sat on the bottom for 10 minutes. So even if I was like, got to half an hour and hadn't had a bite, I'd still keep casting. I might swap down to an even smaller feeder. But it's important to keep some sort of cloud in the water so you can attract a few fish. It's amazing, 2 bites and there we go. I was going to say it was amazing, 2 bites and 2 chucks and then nothing again. Getting quite they're a nice stamp rather than being spectacular. There we go. But again, that was just a lovely, just pulled and hold. I'm going to jinx it now, but you notice I haven't actually missed a bite. The reason being, I'm only picking up when I'm 99% confident that the fish is on. I'm not striking. You see people who are like, I've had loads of bites and missed them. There's 2 reasons for that. Either the roach are too small and they're going to be difficult to catch anyway, or you're picking up at the wrong indication. By fishing really slack like I am now, oh, that was a little. So I'm looking for continuous, just like that, and I've missed it. But that was a continuous movement. I'll definitely get him this time. Not actually mark the bait, so maybe it wasn't. But I'm looking for continuous movement or a pull that actually holds. You hear people saying, I've been striking at every little tap and knock. You shouldn't actually be doing that. See if I can actually do it properly this time. It was a different sort of bite to the ones I'd actually hit, but interesting that the bites aren't coming what I'd call, oh, that was an indication. See that? And I've missed that as well. I can only put that down to the wrong stamp of fish, because that was a proper, that should have been on. Bait again not marked. Let's go back out. If I miss a couple more in a row, then I will shorten the hook length down. The reason being, already I'm noticing, bites they're not slow, but they're not instant. Proper jinxed it by saying I've not missed a bite. Bites aren't instant, so I think I could drop down to 50. I think sometimes you'll find not only going shorter hook length, you'll get a better stamp, but you'll miss less bites. In my head though, I was expecting the bites to be more, I'd expected a bite already now. Just mend that bow. I don't like putting the rod under the water and sinking the bait, mainly because I think you don't always see your bites then. So that had to be on, that's on. That was a proper bite for the size of fish. If I was breaming at throwing meadows, I'd have been pleased with that bite. It's like 4 or 5 ounce. Let's see if we can get one more. And then I'll crack on and we'll update you as the session goes. Got the ground, I've actually, since we did the actual bait section, I've wet the ground bait up a little bit more. Just because purely on the basis I'm fishing a cage. I'm hoping it's going to be a case of almost the more I feed, the more I catch. Just to keep that tip nice and slack. But if you notice that last bite, I didn't pick up straight away. Oh, so that, it would have been easy to strike at that then, but it was never going to be on. Even though I'm holding the rod, it's resisting picking up at the wrong indications. Oh, see that then? I'd rather wait and make sure it's on. Again, it would have been easy to strike at that. That's better. So that's still moving, and I've got it. It's a very small fish, to be fair, or definitely smaller. Yes, a couple of ounces. Still a nice weight building stamp. And what have we had? 5 fish in, don't know, I reckon in well under 10 minutes. So I'm going to plug on and I'll update you as the session progresses. Well, we're basically just under 30 minutes in and I've got 17 fish ranging from literally an ounce up to 6-7 ounce. It's just gone a little bit quiet though. I seem to have a lot of fish in my swim at one point. I've upped it a lot bait wise. What I will say, the bites haven't been, that one's on, they haven't been fast as in like I'm having to wait for them a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm still on the 80, but while we're live I'm going to switch down to a 50. I just feel like there is obviously a lot of fish in this venue. I should be able to catch faster. That's the thing, it's all right thinking, well, getting one a cast, maybe like 30, 40 fish an hour. But if you can catch 50 an hour, obviously that's always going to be better. So I'm going to drop it down to a 50 centimetre just to see if that quickens it up. The other thing I'm looking at it quite soon is switching it over to a window. Got the feeling I might have slightly over-attacked it with the particles. The reason I've really upped the particles is to try and get some better fish. But it might just be a case of playing the numbers game. So I've shortened this down to 50. Mainly the fact I'm not getting bites, what I call on the drop. It's like the fish are actually feeding on the bottom. And in the next chuck or two, I think what I'm going to do is switch to a little window as well. See, I'm waiting. I feel like that should have gone already. The other beauty of a window is a little bit less disturbance. I'm still going to switch to 20 gram, but it'll go in a little bit quieter. I feel like I pulled a few fish straight away, but now for whatever reason they've just backed off. Had a little indication then, but it's definitely slowed up, which has surprised me. Because I was starting to think about like maybe even trying to move a little bit closer in. That one's on. See, I might find, well, what I'd like to find, and often you will find, is with a 50 centimetre over an 80, you get a slightly better stamp of fish because the bigger fish are hungry and come into the bait. I mean, that's like 4 or 5 ounce. They're a really nice stamp. So let's stick with a single maggot. I'm not going to put a bigger up bait on to try and catch faster because I'm trying to catch fast, and single maggot's a lot quicker to put on. And I don't personally believe there's like loads of big fish there and I'm just not getting to them. I'm going to switch to a small window, 20 gram. Just load it with a scoop, not like plugging it with casters, sort of what I call old school. A few advantages to a window. It casts easier. It's like fishing a bomb. Although it's only 20 gram, it also sinks faster. So less time waiting for the feeder to hit the bottom. All little things like can make massive gains, as in like you can be sort of like 5 seconds quicker every cast. It's going to lead to more fish in the net. So much for the bigger stamp. But it was a quick bite. Beauty of a window, I always feel, is like it hits the bottom, probably doesn't release the bait until you strike, so you're almost prepping the swim for the next cast. I've eased up a little bit on the particle, so I'm feeding more ground bait now. Still feeding a few casters, but I was really upping it just to see what it'd take, but maybe I overdid it. That wasn't my best cast, to be fair. Oh, but it still produced a fish. So I'd say straight away the window's faster. Certainly getting quicker bites. Feels like a slightly better stamp, yeah. Got a little wrap up on my power gum there. There we go. They're proper hungry fish, because sometimes you can catch, like, when you're in Ireland, you can catch sort of 6 or 7 on the same feeder. Same feeder, same maggot. But here, they're absolutely annihilating the bait. Well, if I get 2 in my next 2 casts, what I'm going to do is just I'm trying to think speed all the time. How can I catch a little bit faster? You know, 24 metres isn't a long chuck, and it might be that's where I need to fish. But if I can get them to come a little bit closer to me, then that'll quicken me up even further. This chuck I'm actually having to wait for the bite. A little bit of wind got up now as well, which isn't a warm wind. Smaller fish again. Not tiny, but small. Beauty as well of fishing braid direct, fishing quite heavy. I can be very positive winding them in. It's not like playing them in like the crown jewels. I can actually be nice and positive, nice and fast. They're just loading the window like so. It's almost like a double scoop, but I'm not like loading it with casters or maggots first and then chucking it. Right, let's see. If I get a fish this chuck, what I'm going to do next chuck is take 2 turns off. So I'm roughly, I think a TDR winds about 86 centimetres a turn. So already I'm definitely catching faster. So if I'm roughly coming like just over 1.5 meters closer in. I'd say they're a little bit better stamp on the 50 as well. It's annoying that they're proper wiping out the hook bait, because that would quicken me up as well. It's a dead one as well. I do think as well I could switch to at some point, not that far away, I could switch to a 12. I actually I've stopped counting since we've been filming again. So look, I'm going to leave the clip on, then 1, 2, and re-clip it. So I've literally come, if I got under the clip I would have, 1.5 meters closer in. So the other thing, I would have been dragging a little bit of bait. Not sure I'm going to get a bite this chuck, to be fair, because I've proper dragged that now. But I wanted to give myself a chance. What I'd say is when I've always done this in a match, it's something that you only give, this will be my first what I call proper chuck on it. I'll have literally 3 casts, and if it hasn't worked, you need to get back to where you were, because you're wasting time. But if it does work, you're going to be that little bit quicker. And I'm pretty confident there's enough fish there for me to be able to come at least 1.5 meters back. And if I can make this work in another hour, I'll be able to come even closer still, or even another 20 minutes. Because the closer you can catch them, the faster it's going to be. You know, in 3-4 chucks though is maximum before you're wasting time. Could be there's not as many there as you think. And they're not ready yet to move in. That one's on. I just feel like they are. There's plenty there. Lovely stamp, just like they're just sort of swingable. Hopefully we will get an odd 10, 12 ouncer mixed in. The other thing is speed, is to try and cast a bit flatter. I tend to have sort of what I call quite a high action, so I send my feeder quite high. But again, if you want to save time, if you can cast it fast and flat, that also saves time, as in the feeder's in the air for less time. A lot of these things might seem marginal, but when you're catching a lot of fish, an extra 10 fish in 5 hours can make a huge difference to your end result. See, I've come in 1.5 meters and the fish are there, right, well, basically from the off, because the first chuck wasn't the greatest chuck. This one feels a little bit bigger. Because we're on quite heavy gear, I can still swing them. That one's got to be like 7, 8 ounce. But if you're on like 0.10, obviously I couldn't do that. I would definitely, I know I've already sort of say that coming short hook lengths, A, I'm catching quicker. I was agreed, right on top of my peg, and B, better stamp. Oh, can't get much quicker than that one. That grebe obviously hasn't upset them. So I'm already thinking now, I reckon I could come closer still. This is one of the things about not knowing a venue. In hindsight, perhaps I could have started, definitely better stamp. I could have perhaps started at 16 metres, as close as that. But not knowing the venue, you have to play a little bit safer. And that's what I feel like I've done. 24 offered me that deeper water, and it was nice and safe. If I hadn't caught, obviously I might have had to go further. But I'm already thinking now how good this is. That window's definitely better as well. It's easier to reel them in fast with a window because it comes in like a bomb. I mean, you can't, should still be counting, but I've totally lost count. I will say in a match situation, I always try and set myself targets every hour. These are lovely fish. Definitely, definitely bigger than they were on that longer hook length. I think perhaps it's not quite deep enough. Well, there's two reasons. I think it's not as deep as I perhaps imagined before I got here, and also there's more fish. I reckon another 2 chucks here, and I'm going to come another 2 turns closer in. Really try and get faster. Everything by fishing slack, I'm going to totally jinx it now. I'm hardly missing a bite. They are a good stamp as well for hitting, but I'm not having to try and wind them on or anything, because by fishing it nice and slack and waiting for the positive pull, you just can't miss them. If I fished it too tight, what tends to happen is they'll bounce themselves off. You watch me miss this one now. What I'm going to do, stop it there, and then I can get 1, 2, another 2 turns. I can just get that to go under the, got ground bait under the clip. Quite messy when you're speed fishing, particularly when you can't get the bait to go under the clip. There we go. I'm not sure I'll get one this chuck, because obviously I've come, let's have a first popper chuck. But basically, since we've been speaking, I'll have come best part of 4 meters closer in, which, so I'm pretty much at 20 meters now. It's just going to make me that little bit more efficient. That's one of the things I always emphasise is, even when you're catching, you've got to try and think, how can I catch faster? What can I do a little bit different? It's all too easy sometimes just to be happy with the rate you're catching at. Now, eventually though, you do have to, you can't just keep moving because you need to settle the fish. Oh, there's a fish. At a distance and just basically clatter them. Because if you're not careful, you spend all day moving. But they're great weight building fish. And like I say, the window's definitely, I feel, it's faster for a number of reasons. A, sinks quicker, casts better, so I can cast nice and flat. And also, I don't think it releases much bait. So the first bait they see is the hook bait. They take that, I pick up, and then the bait literally empties. Then, so you're setting it up for the next chuck. By the time I chuck back out, they're waiting again. Because it definitely wasn't as quick as this on the cage, and the stamp wasn't anywhere near as good. Which shows how a subtle difference, just like changing your feeder, can make a big difference in catch rate. Didn't have to change the bait on that one. Still feeding a little bit of castor and a bit of corn. Perhaps should have changed the bait, but didn't need to. Oh, that feels a little bit bigger. Very scatty. Very direct, very, obviously, isn't it, harsh. Let's see how big this one is. You could still swing it. It's got to be 8 ounce of anyone's money. Right, catch one more while we're live, so to speak, and then I'll update you in a bit. I've got a feeling, like I say, I'm at 20 metres now. I reckon I can be in sort of 16 pretty quick, and it isn't going to make a lot of difference to my catch rate. That was what I call a lazy lob chuck. Reached the clip, but not as hard and low as the way when you're catching fast. Oh, indications. Still waiting though for that popper. I was just about to pick up on that. That one's got to be on, yeah. Smaller fish. You can almost tell by the bite that that was going to be a bit smaller. Still not a tiny fish, but smaller than what I was catching. Right, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try and sort of get up to, if I can, the way it's going, I can't see any reason why we can't get what I call 50 an hour pace, which is takes some doing. But by moving in, pretty confident if they keep coming, that's going to be possible. So let's see how it goes. When you last joined me, I was flying basically. I've just moved into 20. I came into 18 and it's just not happening. It's a bit of an example of maybe getting a little bit too greedy. Just tried chopping and changing feeder size. I'm getting odd fish there, but it's just nothing like what it was. I find it hard to believe though that that one's on. 18 metres is just that bad from 20, but it's definitely slowed right up. It's still okay, but literally it was like 50 an hour pace when you last left me. Now it's back down to probably 30 an hour. I'm not quite sure why. Like I said, I've switched down now to the mini window. It's like that. I've tried cutting the casters out, just feeding neat ground bait. I've tried putting the casters back in, but I can't get it to really what I call rock again. I'm going to give it another couple of minutes while we're live, and then if it's not getting faster, I'm going to go back out. I'm going to up the casters just for the minute. I'm not convinced that's necessarily right, but I just want to try something to try and pull the fish into 18. If it's not, I've still got my clips on, so I should just move back out. Just don't quite understand why 2 metres could have made that much difference. So it could just be that that's how it is. Roach are notoriously fickle, they've just moved in and out. But it does make the point is like you can keep moving, but eventually you have to just say, right, this is really good. I'm happy with, that's an indication. I'm happy with distance. Now I'm just going to catch them. I've also gone to a 12, but again, I don't believe it's hook size. I've gone to a 12 series 18, another indication. But as you can see, I'm waiting. Didn't even get a proper bite, that shot. I'm waiting for bites, which when you last saw me, it was literally 10 seconds and round. Just going to have 2 or 3 chucks attacking it with casters now. I dropped down a feeder size just in case it was spooking them, the bigger feeder. But I don't think it was, but maybe I've just literally come 2 metres inside the fish. 20 metres was the line. Because the bites were like, it was round by now. No indication again then, but it's not pulling the rod in. There's obviously not a million there because I've been on venues before where it's solid, maybe with smaller stamp than what I've caught today, but you tend to find you clip them on the way down because there's loads there and they're stacked up. See, it's small, that fish again. You're clipping them on the way down. I haven't clipped any. Don't get me wrong, there's still a decent head of fish there, but I've lost that big stamp I was catching. Might be I can't do anything about it, it's just the nature of the beast and they've moved. But my gut instinct is maybe it's something I've just come inside them, even though that 2 metres doesn't seem a lot. See, before it was like that was round already. It's a little indication then, but tiny fish indication, not them ones that were virtually pulling them, and another indication, and another, just not the right size fish for that big sort of smooth pull I was getting from them. Like that one, that's a better fish. It's amazing, even when there's a lot of fish there, you've still got to keep, oh, that's a nice fish. You've still got to keep thinking about how you're doing it, changing things up. They're easy to catch, but it's not easy to catch one every cast. I'm going to keep putting the casters in, because I wouldn't imagine they see much ground bait. I wouldn't imagine see that many casters either, to be fair. But with this little feeder, I can virtually just cram it with casters and just enough ground bait to hold it in. I just want them quick bites to come back. Just try and keep that tip slack. See, that should have already, I feel like that should have already gone. Before, that's how good it was. It hasn't, oh, that was an indicator. See, I nearly hit that. Oh, should have hit that. At least there's a couple of songs a bit, now I'm up in the caster. It may be that they don't want the ground bait, or they don't, casters are what they're actually coming to. So I'm going to keep plugging it with lots of casters and hoping it's going to get better. But I'm only going to give this, if it doesn't get better in the next 5 minutes while we're live, then I'm just going to move back out, because why wouldn't you? I'd rather get quicker bites at, try and slacken that off a little bit. I'd rather get quicker bites at 20 than not as many bites at 18. So there are fish there. I had an indication that then. So the stamp just seems a bit smaller as well. You stamp something, particularly if you ever get into a fish race, you need to pay it, because you can be a busy fool if you're not careful. Oh, pulled that maggot off. Think you're flying and have a couple of 100 fish, and someone else could have 120, and their stamp's twice the size of yours, and they'll beat you. So even when you're catching fast, sometimes you have to take stamp into account. Keep an eye on whatever people are catching, and can you catch a better stamp? And at the minute, my stamp's gone a lot smaller. Just different bites as well. Let's just mend that bow. Right. So there is fish on that line, but they're not. Be interesting to see now. I'm going to take, if this doesn't go for a proper fish, this chuck, which it doesn't look like, it should have gone by now. Oh, indication. Pretty sure I'm feeding them enough. I don't feel like a bigger feeder is going to suddenly transform the swim. But like that's pretty. Right, let's take that clip off. When I've been moving, I've been leaving the clip on. I think there's actually a fish. Yeah, look, you know, I mean, that's them last 2 fish. I'm going nowhere catching that stamp. Literally nowhere. I'll have one chuck. We'll have the first chuck on this little mini, and then I'll revert back to the small window. It might be I need to cloud it back up. So I might have to switch back to the cage. We've gone back to 20. See what happens at 20. Look at that. How can that be? That they won't come inside? Considering I'm not chucked there for probably at least 40 minutes, half hour. You chuck there and one pulls the rod in as you're tightening up. See if it was a fluke. What can be the difference between 20 metres and where I was, if this pulls round again? Which it probably won't now. Not as fast as that last one, that was ridiculous. Oh, sign. Might want that bigger feeder. Another fish. Better stamp again as well. Bear in mind them last two fish I caught on that 18-metre line, probably maximum an ounce each. I've had 2 in 2 on that line, and they've probably gone 12, 14 ounce the two. Which is ridiculous because there's not a massive depth differentiation even, if that's how you pronounce it, between the two lines. But there's a huge difference in catch and stamper fish if it keeps going. I've never, to be fair, from the moment you left me, I never had a great run at 18 metres for some reason. But I just kept thinking they'll come in and it'll be much faster there. But you can tell the different stamp by the bite. That was a nice, much smoother, more positive bites. Like that then. Nice smooth, and you can't miss them. Well, you can miss them, but they're more difficult to miss. You know, what I do like about this little window, it's almost like bomb fishing for roach. If I can't get the hook out, I'd rather cut the line than risk hurting the fish. What I do for speed when I'm roaching, I always have my hooks. It's something Will Freeman showed me years ago in Ireland. I always have my spare hooks just stuck in the foam by the side of me. Just saves time having to unravel them off the spool, etc. I can literally pick them off the foam. To be fair, I need to top that up, but it's just another little tip to save a bit of time. See if we can get another one at a distance. Now the little feeder as well, it's like fishing with a bomb, but you are introducing a little bit of bait. I was going to hit that. Oh, that is just unbelievable. I wouldn't have believed if someone had said to me that they were fishing at 18 metres and were struggling and went to 20 and had one a chuck. I'd have said, what a load of rubbish. I think I might. I'm going to net that one, it's not fair to swing it. Probably the biggest one I've had. Getting on for 10, 12 ounce. Really nice fish. Like I said, I wouldn't have believed that it was possible for 2 metres to make that much difference, but it has. And on the plus side, I'm back on track to a pretty spectacular catch, I'd have said, looking at the stamp of fish. Ground bait's quite, you can see that it's quite wet. Not loads of ground bait, trying to get more caster in. See if I can catch a couple more while we're live. Oh, thought that was going to go, definite indication. Just looking for that really smooth pull. Probably jinxed it now. Oh, no. There we go. Just like a totally different, although this isn't as big as the last one, it's like a totally different stamp of fish, 2 metres difference in distance. I reckon, like, if they were that size, they'd literally be 3 to the pound. You can tell they're not hook and line shy either, because a lot of them are swallowing it. Right, one more, and then I'll get my head down and try and get a nice rhythm going. Do feel like I wasted 20 minutes, but sometimes you need to waste a little bit of time to learn more about your swim. Oh, I can't go out on a missed bite. Oh, I haven't missed it. Might have been better missing it. See if we can get one more stamper. You might be thinking, why is he not chucked the empty? Well, the answer is, when I say empty, I mean the empty feeder. I have tried the empty, but it's not been right yet. Later on, it might be. Sometimes you can get into a rhythm of fill it once, and then catch one, and then catch 2 without filling, but hasn't quite been enough fish there yet to do that. Yeah, stamper to finish. Just totally different at that distance. Fishing exactly the same, feeding the same hook bait, same hook length, one of them at 20, and almost scratching at 18. Clonking fish. Right, I'm going to carry on. I'd say, since we last updated, I wouldn't say it's been spectacular, but it's been steady, and the stamp's been really, really good. That sort of stamp you can just swing. It's not been, I've had little spells where it's been absolutely solid, and then other spells where you're having to wait. What's been interesting, I haven't been able to catch any shorter. I've tried coming back in once to 18 when it got good, but 20 seems to be the limit line. But when I have a bit of a funny spell, like I'm just having now, like I'm waiting now for a bite, chucking left and right's been really good. It's almost like, because it's a calm or because they're not used to being fished for, eventually by chucking constantly in the same spot, I'm spooking them. So when that happens, all I've been doing is just going left and right, catching a couple, and then going back to the main spot. And normally, when I've gone left and right, I've been able to catch. Got the ground bait really, really wet now. Stayed on that little window, 50 centimetres, size 12, series 18. I'm going to slide that left now. Only when I say left, I'm only going like, I don't know, it looks like 1.5 meters, 2 metres to the left. But it's almost like the fish just get little runs where they're really on it, then they spook a bit. And when they spook, basically, just chuck left and right, nick a couple, and then go back to the middle again and they'll feed. Still fishing it nice and slack. Here we go, there's one on the left, a bit smaller. You only seem to get the real good stamp when they're right hard on the bait. I mean, that's not a... So I've got a little twizzle in my gum. There we go. Still single maggot, just looked thick. To be honest, when the right stamp of fish are there, I've hardly been missing a bite. But keeping it slack makes a huge difference. Let's go left again. I've tried varying my ground bait. I'm not really worked that part out, the ground bait, how it needs to be. So keep it nice and slack. Just wait for that pronounced pull or constant movement. So because the stamp's been so good, it's got that caught on a leaf. Don't think you can catch. Oh. It's not like, I think my estimate of like 50, 60 an hour is unachievable just because of the stamp is big and the fact they just move in and out a little bit. And they're great fish, I reckon. I don't know how many I've got now because I've not counted, but well over 100. And we're probably like halfway through. We're probably 2.5 hours in. It's starting to rain at the minute, to be fair. Let's go left again. But it shows like, just because it's died doesn't mean the fish have actually gone far. they've just moved left and right. You just need to follow them. Just really weird that they won't come any closer in. So if I just hold it nice and slack. The bites have been really, really good. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's come off. To be fair, it's the first fish I've lost actually on the way in all day, and it has to be while we're live. One little point I will make here, your hook has to be sharp. It's like if I lose another one in the next couple, or sometimes, you know, when you go to hook your maggot, you think, well, that's a bit blunt. A sharp hook for roach fishing is absolutely essential. It makes a huge difference. So if you ever have any doubt, or you say you miss a couple of bites and you think, can't believe I missed them, a lot of the time it's just down to your hook. Oh, I've missed that. I'm going to change that hook now, because that should have been on. It might seem like it slows you down changing your hook, but in reality, if you start hitting more bites, then you're not slower. And like losing that fish and then missing that bite that should have been on, and that I've probably had like 40, 50 fish on that hook. You can tell, I can tell now when I hook that maggot then that I'm on a new hook, purely on the basis of how easy it went through. Stay on that slightly left line, just so you can see, really wet. Loads of casters in it. Say loads, I'm not going to end up feeding that many. You know, I've probably fed 3/4 of a pint so far. Like I say, it's just going through one of them little funny spells at the moment where I'm just having to wait. Just put a little bit more water. Wetter ground bait's definitely like I say, even if I don't get a bite, I'm not leaving it out. I've got a leaf. Oh, it fell off. I had a leaf fish then. So the weather's definitely took a turn for the not so good. I haven't played around with hook length again, mainly for the fact the fishing's been good. So I'm just going to inch my way back towards the main spot now. So when it was really good, like that'd be, now it'd be round. But it's almost like you're having to plough a furrow, take the good runs and put up with it when it slows down a little bit. This is probably the slowest we've had it when we've been on camera. So it's like they've proper backed off now. I did try corn on the hook and I did catch on it. I had 2 or 3 quick fish on it, but to be brutally honest, they weren't any bigger than what I was catching on maggots, so I didn't persevere with it. But it showed they were eating it. See, no bite again this chap. I'm not a fan of twitching it or anything like that. I'd rather just be busy. So even though I'm not getting bites, I'm still trying to keep going in and out. I'm going to go back to the main spot now, just to see if the fish has settled again. Like I said, it is really important, even when you're not catching, to be busy. Right, that's an indication. There's a lot of leaves, just suddenly come on the water. That's a bite. That's come off. So much for my sharp hook theory. It wasn't a big fish, to be fair. Hopefully that means I'm going to find some fish again. and they've come back onto the bait. It's not ideal with all these leaves floating. See, when they were really having it, that would be straight round now. Indication then. Another indication. Another indication. Just want that's the bite. Just want that constant movement. It's so easy to be. You don't sit on your hands, but it's a great expression. When you wait for fish, you've got to wait for that proper bite where you know it's on. It's so easy to be too quick and just think I'm having that and then miss it. And if you'd have just waited, it would have been on. Still haven't been able to catch on the empty either. It's like they do want, when they're there and feeding, it's like they do want a bit of bait. Just let it slacken off. That's when I'd expect, if they're really there I'd expect that just a nice slow pull round, which you can't miss. But it's not really worked out 100%. It's like when they're there, you can feed them loads. And then when they're not there, it doesn't matter what you feed, they're not coming back until they want to. Not convinced them grebes are really helping at the minute. Got 2 grebes working the swim really nicely. No bite that chunk. I did have a little tiny indication. See if I can catch a couple more while we are live, so to speak. My ground bait's proper wet now. What I might try in a minute is just plugging it a bit harder. Just even with a window, how you plug it can make a big difference. Unless this just pulls off the rest straight away. I've tried wetting it up, the idea being to get a few casters to come out on impact so they sink through the water and hopefully help me pull fish, but it's not really ever seemed quite like the fish are feeding off the deck. You'd say they're not feeding at all at the minute. It's very odd. I'm going to go back left again in a second because nothing's really there's a bite. Makes me wonder like sometimes whether a better fish has turned up, but I've not hooked anything. Probably biggest roach is 12 ounce. Lots of that sort of size fish. Great weight builders. Oh, let's see if we can make it 2 and 2 and get back on track. Like I say, this has been symptomatic of the day, but it's just been more the case of when we've been live, it's been exceptionally good. So it's perhaps not a bad thing. You're actually seeing both sides of it now. Like I say, when it's gone hard, I've tried cutting out the casters, I've tried leak ground bait, I've tried slopping it up, but none of it's really made much difference. It's like when they're there and want to feed, they feed, and when they're not, you can chuck about a bit and keep nicking them, but you just have to wait for them to settle again. So after this jet, I'm going to try plugging it really hard. But that said, I don't feel like they're really there at the minute. If they were there, I'd be getting more taps and knocks, etc. Definitely not. Don't know whether it's because we had that little bit of rain or whether the wind's dropped and it's just spooked them a bit. Right, let's try going left, see if they've moved again. Bait's not even marked, which something else sometimes I've only is half filled that window. Right, that's gone a bit left. Let's see if they've... Very strange, because you feel like with some of the good runs I've had, it'd just get better and better and better. But I guess they're just easily spooked, and it is absolutely freezing. The water's... Oh, that was a sign. The water's literally like ice. There we go. Just chucked it left and there's a fish. Might be I'm just going to have to start a new swim. Let's see if we can get... Not a mega stamp that one, but a wire. Right, let's go for one more. And then we'll have another break. Well, not a break, you'll just have a break. Plug that quite hard again. And only half filled it. Slide it left. I wonder whether they come off bottom, but I haven't caught any, not caught enough on the drop to say, oh, they're off. There's another one. It's just amazing, just like literally 1.5 meters to the left and it's 2 in 2 chucks. Just half filling the feeder and then plugging it hard. That's more like the stamp. Right, I'm going to try for, just to prove it wasn't a fluke, we'll go for one more. When I say half filled, you can see the little indentation in it. So it's not like filled to the edge. Let's go back to the... It's literally 1 metre, I reckon 1 metre to the left of where I've been catching. Come on, let's have 3 and 3. Thought I had an indication then, but... There we go, 3 and 3. I think it's another stamper. Right, I'm going to get my head down, see if we can keep them coming for a bit longer. I'll update again soon. Well, it's safe to say it's really tailed off. Don't think this big group of ducks are exactly helping matters. But I had a little run, last time I updated, I had a nice little run, half filling, fishing off the bait, good stamp fish. It lasted sort of 10, 15, maybe 15, 20 fish to be fair. But it's proper tailed off again now. Just trying slopping it up a bit to see if that'll bring them back. But I don't know, it just feels like it's just gone over a little bit. It's really odd. My next port of call, if I can't bring them back at 20, I'll just take 1 metre off and go 1 metre further. Like I say, I don't think all this wildlife's right on top of my feeders exactly helping. I'm just not getting the bites. It's weird because like, I keep trying slopping it up, but it's not. Sometimes it produces a few smaller stamp fish. Is that an indication then? But it's not producing them like big stampers. For the big stampers, it seems better, like stodged up. But I'm just not getting the bites like I was. I'm not quite sure why. Obviously the weather's quite changeable, but stodged it up again now. At no stage though have I clipped any, like as I'm waiting for that to hit bottom, if there was stacks of them there, you'd be clipping them. But I've had some really good runs of fish. Just feels like what we've been going. Basically we've been going like 3.5 hours. Just feels like it's tailing off a bit now. It's had an indication then, but not when them big like stampers are in your swim. The bites are just a bit more like that one. Stodged it back up for that one, but filled the feeder instead of half filling it. They're the ones. Definitely don't think them ducks have moved off the top as well. When you're fishing for roach on a big natural venue, I definitely don't think that maybe sees an odd cormorant. I don't think having loads of wildlife on top of your feeder is the one. See if I can get two. Keep it try and keep it a little bit drier now, so it's proper stodgy, but quite heavy with it. Oh, that was a sign. So it's quite claggy in consistency. If I can just show you there, it's almost like a paste, but with a few casters in it. Maybe it will try and help pin them on the deck a bit better. I've not felt like I've lost them because they've come off bottom. I feel like I lose them because they just move in and out. And it's like when they're there, it's unbelievable, and when they go, they're gone. You don't really get any odd uns. I could try chucking. I'm loath to go further. I don't want to go further out, but equally, I don't want to spend this last sort of half hour. I think we're going to probably fish 4 and a bit hours today, catching nothing either. Let's try. Keep the stodging. Let's try going as far right as I've gone. Let's go right over there. That's as far left even. That's as far left as I've gone today. Oh, that was a sign. It's just strange though that I've had to chase them so much. Maybe it's the fact they don't get feeder fished for much, and the constant noise of the feeder, they don't like it. That's why the little window's been the best feeder. I said it's same with the amount of put through the feeder. You can put loads of casters in when they're there, but equally when they don't want to be there, it doesn't matter what you. Let's have another chuck to that spot. I did have a sign. I couldn't really tell you. All I can tell you is when the fish have been there, they've wanted to eat, but I haven't found a recipe to keep them coming constantly. Let's go there again. So I did have a sign then, literally as I was tightening up. When you consider how good it's been at times, it's just hard to believe it's gone off so much. Right, I'm going to have one more chuck to this spot, and then if that doesn't work, I'm going to go a metre further. It's not really showing any signs of working. Just don't quite work out, can't really understand why. So that should have gone now. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to waste any more time. As I've said many times, 50 a metre. So that's going to go 1 metre further. I was hoping I'd gradually have pulled them in, but it's like I've reached that 20 point. So that'll take me back out to sort of 21. I just don't see the point of sitting there catching nothing. Because it's proper gone off now. Alright, let's just see if they've backed off. And I can get another run at them. Well, a metre's not far, but if they were just sitting off the back of the bait, maybe picking up any little bits that are dropping through the water, that'd make sense. I mean, it's possible they've just shut up shop, but I don't really understand why. Yeah, it's probably the coldest part of the day, but they were proper feeding for quite a long time. Oh, there's one on the end. So at least that move, it's a very small fish. Nothing like the stamp we're looking for. See if we can never chuck to that spot. So that sort of size fish, never really a very good size. Sort of suggests there's not any amount of bigger fish there at the moment. That's another reason though, when it goes like this, it's why when they're in your swim, you've got to make the most of it, because they're not going to stay in your swim all day. Might try up in the casters again. Every time I've tried to cut the casters out, it's just not happened. So about for this last sort of half hour, 40 minutes, I'm going to really, I might even get some more in there. Put loads of casters in. So basically, all the ground bait's doing is holding the casters in. So it's basically a load of casters with a little tiny bit of ground bait around them. See if that, straighten that link. So you can see the casters all over that. It's really, might as well go down, end the day, attacking it. I don't think I can do any harm to it because it's proper died off. One of them mysteries where you think, why? I mean, there's got to be a stack of fish in here, so I don't believe I've run out of fish. For some reason, they've just spooked. I can have 2 or 3 quick chucks just to get those casters in. So there's a bit of bait there. Suddenly got a couple of little loops on the rig. There we go. See if we can maybe just get it going again, because if anything, it's just getting worse and worse now. Got loads of casters in now. I know the odd person that's fishing, they catch loose feeding, so it's not ridiculous to expect putting a load of casters in to maybe pull a few fish, but it's definitely not happening for me at the minute. I mean, it's important though, even though I'm not catching, to keep chucking, because if they do come back, this is without doubt now the worst spell of the day. I just felt like putting some casters in, putting some particles might have pulled them back in. But if anything, I'm getting less signs. So give this another. If I can't get a bite, maybe I need to look at the reverse. I'll get some fresh. I can maybe get some fresh ground bait. Basically, going a metre past has done absolutely nothing. So let's put that there. Get some fresh ground bait out. Ditch the piling casters in idea, because that's doing absolutely nothing. I'm gonna, so that's on the clip. 1, 2. Come a little bit closer, because going out Didn't do anything. Look at that, I've reeled that a couple of turns and then one's at it. Tiny fish. What I'm going to do, wet this ground bait up a little bit, like so. And I'm going to try feeding very little for this last half hour now, just to try and catch some fish. That's why I've moved. Come 2 metres close, I'll be at just under 20 metres now. Just feeding neat ground bait can't really do much harm. Oh, I had a bite then. Might be off to finish with a smaller stamp, but a smaller stamp is better than literally putting nothing in the net. See if I can get one. Maybe I've just overcooked the particles. You think like the roach would just be really hungry fish. That was an indication. Not an indication I'd have said that was from a... Oh, that was a bite, good stamp fish. That's 2 bites in 2. Although I haven't hit any of them, which suggests they're not good fish. But before we leave you, let's see if we can just get one. Literally, I've got no casters in this at all now. Blatantly obvious, like when I tapped it, nothing was coming to it. So now all I'm feeding is neat ground bait. There's literally a cloud and no food in the water. Wind's just got up again. Normally I always find you get a quick when you get it right, they should respond quite quick. I don't believe they'll have gone very far away. It's getting a bit of a bow in the line. I think I had an indication then. Yeah, there's a fish. Again, not a big one, but another fish. We're at that time of day now where every fish is a bonus. Right, let's try for one more. Just neat ground bait. You can see just there, nothing in it at all. I have caught a lot of roach before, just with neat ground bait. It's not like it's unusual. It just felt like here they were coming to the bait. It's certainly not rapid. It's just the fact I've sat on my own and they're just spooked a bit. That's an indication, I think. Oh, and that. Just them quick bites are just gone now. It's totally, you can see that vibrating then. That's a totally different, I've got it, it's a tiny little fish. Right, literally 20 minutes to go. I'll see if I can finish with a flourish. Literally 5 minutes, and then we'll have fished 4 hours, 15 minutes. The last I updated you probably 20 minutes ago, and it proper died a death. I've had a few fish since. I wouldn't pretend that it's been immense. I've had an odd, probably had in the last 20 minutes, probably had 12 fish. Odd stamper, some smaller fish. Just literally like putting like 6 to 8 casters in the feeder, a little bit of ground bait, just fishing it a bit more negative just for bites. Maybe being a little bit more patient too. But it's certainly not solid. It's definitely tailed away a bit this last 40 minutes. So I did have a little burst of fish, but very mixed size. I haven't been able to do anything to get a good run of them big stamp fish again. But by starting that new line and cutting it back and being a bit more negative, at least I've been able to tick over to the end. There's nothing worse than sort of finishing on a massive low, and then say if it was a match, just missing out, having had a terrible last half hour, and you could have cut back. At least I always try and treat every fish as a bonus in this period. The quick bites seem to have just disappeared basically, but that again is a sign that there's not, when you're waiting a little bit, there's definitely not as many fish there. The quick bites were coming when I was really sort of flying, and there's loads of fish there, they're competing. Now I'm sort of scraping the bottom, so to speak. So there is odd fish to be caught, but just not rapid fire. I think if it hadn't been so good early, well, for the first 3 hours, you'd say, oh, it's not that bad now. There's a sign. Got him, little fish. Literally, it is a case at the minute of just putting a couple of, fell off. Putting a couple of fish in the net. Interesting thing is, last half hour, I have had a few fish come off, and I think that's just a sign there's not as many fish there now. They're not confident, so they're not feeding properly. Because I reckon for the first 3 hours, I virtually hardly lost a fish. And a lot of my bites were like, now it'd be like, that's on. Temperature has definitely dropped, so maybe that's something to do with it. Because if it had kept on, I reckon like 50, 60 pound of roach would have been possible. So they're really small. Obviously better than nothing, but not by much. Really small fish now. I don't feel there's anything, well, I've only got a couple of minutes anyway, I can really do to increase the stamp now. I tried upping it earlier and it just killed it. I think it's a case of now just being grateful for what's there. Literally just a normal sort of mix now, or just an odd caster mixed into it. If I'd have started getting quicker bites again, I could maybe have upped it. But the fact that it's tailed away so rapid suggests that wasn't likely to happen. And the fact I'm waiting for bites is another sign that there's not loads of fish there. Oh, I missed that one. Right, I'm going to try, literally got a minute left, I'm going to try for one more and then we'll wrap it up and have a look at what we've got. It's been an interesting session because although it's been, at times it's been awesome, it's not been like that all day, so it's not been boring as such, as in it's just cast out, wind them in. You've had to mix it up a bit, I've had to move about, chop and change what I'm feeding, chop and change consistency of ground bait, hook size, hook length, feeder. Lots of little things have allowed me to tick over almost until this last little spell. It'd just be nice to finish on a stamper. Trying to keep it nice and slack. I've had an indication this chuck, but not a... The other thing that's really noticeable is how different the bites are between stamper fish. when you get them really good fish in your swim, lovely. I've got this fish, but it's too small to finish on, so I'm going to go for one more, because we can't finish on that. We really can't. But the bites are just different when they're in the swim. Them better fish, much smoother. Right, let's plug it really hard, see if that will attract a better fish. Right, this is the last fish. It's also been a good day to demonstrate how effective slacklining is. Yes, that'll do. It's not a stamper, but it's a fish. Well, in fact, it's tiny, but it's no bigger than the one I snared at. So, but we're going to finish there. I'm going to get packed up, and we'll have a look at what we've got. So there you go. I reckon over £30, maybe £35 a roach, one perch, one little hybrid. Awesome fishing when it's as cold as this. So I'm going to slip these back, and I'll see you next month.